Welcome to the WeLBL podcast. This is brought to you by Julie and Alex.
Hi everyone, this is Alex, and I've been watching Thai Boy Love, as well as other Asian boys love since last year. And so, super excited to start this review on Love by Chance 2, A Chance to Love. That's it.
So Alex and I fell into Thai BL series like he was saying, a little bit over a year ago. Our friend suggested to us that we start a podcast to share our fandom with the rest of you who I'm sure are in the same boat as us. The primary sort of goal and purpose of our podcast is just to share our love of BL series, support cast members, talent, and authors. And we're mostly going to be discussing various series that we've seen or are anticipating, going over some of our recommendations, some of our favorite ships, and briefly touching on certain book series as well. We are not an authority on any BL stuff. We're both not Thai, and we don't speak Thai language, but we are just huge fans and want to bring that to the USA and hopefully to other international fans as well. So just so you know, all of our opinions are our own opinions based on what we've read and what we've seen.
Yeah, and just forgive us for any mispronunciations of actor names or character names.
And then the last warning to give you is that we will be talking about these series in depth and that there will be spoilers. We will be talking about things that happen in the books as well as the series. So please continue listening at your own risk. If you'd rather stop and watch the series first and come back to our podcast, go for that instead. So we're going to be covering A Chance to Love, which is the second installment series of Love by Chance, which was actually the first series that I think Alex and I, or one of the first series that Alex and I got super into when we discovered this world of Thai BL. I think shortly after watching Sodus. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was either after Sodus or Dark Blue Kiss. I can't remember. It's sometime around this time of year last year, I think.
Yeah. So, I'm sure a lot of you listeners are big fans of Love by Chance as well. A lot of you have probably read the books or a lot of fan fiction around it. But what we want to do is sort of talk about it as though it were just a single series. If you were just walking into this series with no prior knowledge of Love by Chance. And we have background in things that we're going to talk about.
Just so everyone knows, it was, for me, a little confusing, like where they were in terms of, if you've read the novel, like where they are in the timeline. It starts out basically at that final game of the year. So I was actually pretty confused where we were. And then, we see Techno get hurt. And then in the novels, this is kind of where they lose, and then Ken ends up crying.
Mm-hmm.
So that happened. And then, that happens, and then Tin comforts Can. And then we go back about, 3 months?
Right.
So that's how it starts. It's a little confusing at first, but I mean, if you keep powering through the first few episodes, it gets a lot clearer.
Yeah. So let's talk about that scene, because I remember, having read the books, this was a scene that I know a lot of fans were looking forward to. It's a scene where Tin is supporting Can from the sidelines at the game. And then after they lose, Can is showing a big smile on his face, but, trying to stay positive despite the fact that the team lost, when actually he's just incredibly distraught over the loss, and goes to cry on his own in one of the locker room areas. And that's where Tin comes to comfort him. So what did you think about that scene? Like there was so many good things about this scene, but I want to know what you thought about it.
So it does kind of go well with the novel in this part because it's like Tin kind of disappeared for a bit. It's not really evident, right? But like Can kind of does say, "Hey, don't disappear on me again. You can't do that."
Right. And it's kind of unclear, like, yeah, what exactly had happened, what had transpired before that, why he would say that.
Yeah, especially if you haven't read the novel, it's a little unclear. Yeah, what did you think, Joey?
Yeah, so there's a few things that I noticed. Like, for one, this is where we first hear the theme song, the Boy Sans Pub theme song, Hope, which is just absolutely beautiful theme song and makes me cry, like, every time I hear it. That was one of my favorite parts. One thing that I wrote down is that, you know, the tear that when Can sort of embraces Tin and the tear that falls down Tin's cheek, and you're just, you know, there's so much relief that you feel because you feel Tin's relief because, you know, you realize that, oh my goodness, this is the first time Can is actually, you know, willing to embrace him.
Yeah. Also, like, it's also when Can's kind of just saying like, hey, it's not like I don't like you. It's because, he's just confused.
Right. Yeah.
So that one tear of relief, I feel like captured Tin's emotion, especially from the book where he's like, oh, okay, thank goodness I have a chance.
Right. Right.
And of course, Boy Sans Pub song kicks in around here. So
yeah,
it's always perfect timing in this show. And then
yeah, I really do love when they kick in the theme song at these really dramatic moments. Like, it just really brings it to new heights. And helps you sort of feel what the characters are feeling.
Mm-hmm. And then it cuts to the intro right after this.
Yeah, the really happy, cutesy intro.
Yes, the very happy, cutesy intro. And then we go to 3 months before, and you see Tin waking up in bed, all nice and calm. In contrast, Can wakes up late in a panic mode.
Yeah.
And his mom and his sister are great. This is Can's mom and sister. They just like to tease him a lot, so it's really funny.
Yeah, I think that his family, I'm glad that they kept the same actors from before because they were just fabulous, and I think that, you know, they bring so much lightheartedness to the show, like especially Leia's character. I think she's super, super cute.
Yeah, definitely. Leia is probably the saving grace of Can.
Yeah.
So in many parts.
In so many respects. Yeah.
And then so that goes on. So Can rushes to school here, and then, you know, this is where they first meet, guys. So Can nearly gets run over by Tin in his Mercedes.
Yeah.
Very nice black Mercedes car. And then Can curses, Tin just drives off. I guess there was a shrine there, so Can just, you know, just bows to the shrine and thanks that he didn't get completely run over.
Yeah. That was a cute touch there, I think.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool. Did you have any thoughts about that 3 months later part, or?
Yeah, so kind of like you were saying, I was also a bit confused. So again, for those who were expecting the continuation of the first series and for it to play out more similarly, closely to the novel, this is where we start to see it deviate, right? So the timeline gets changed, and the origin of Tin Can is completely changed. So for series 1, where the series 1 almost follows the book verbatim, like almost scene by scene. It's almost kind of incredible how they did series 1 to be so close to the book. Series 2 definitely takes a turn from here. And so it did feel a little bit of a shock for a lot of fans, I think, like what was happening. So also for me, I was just trying to understand the flashback and the timeline thing. And like you said, it took me a while to adjust to it and sort of accept that, like, okay, this is the pacing that I can expect from it. But no, for that scene specifically, I think that One thing I really like is Can's whininess. They really nailed it in this series. I think, the way that he's constantly whining to himself and kind of pouts a lot, and acts and behaves like a child, which is one of his more endearing characteristics. I think that they did that really well here. And I just die inside every time he whines to himself. It's just so cute.
He doesn't care what other people think either. He just does it. And then the fact that he like talks really fast and all his friends and like the soccer captain, No, or Techno, right, is always like just looking at him and like, what does he say? Exactly. Is great. So I thought they captured that really well. And again, yes, so it did deviate here right after the opening credits. But I think they said somewhere that Mean, the actor for Tin, was like, just keep watching, guys. I was confused as well.
Yeah.
So it does take a few episodes, but eventually they get back to where this whole episode began. But before that, like, we do also see a little sad in this episode.
Yeah.
I thought I was super confused at what was going on, but apparently what's happened is Pete has gone off to study somewhere else. And it's a little confusing until a couple more episodes to know, like, even get a small detail of what happened. But basically Pete went away to kind of save A from apparently getting expelled, which we later learn.
Right.
But I think Tin ended up helping that situation as well. So
yeah. And they do allude to that later. Yeah.
Yeah. But A is pretty sad here. And Pond and Bo are pretty dang worried, especially Pond, since he's A's roommate. So it's kind of sad that A's like not leaning on Pond more, although Pond is like literally there like
for him
every time, and following him around to make sure nothing bad happens.
Right. Yeah, Pond really shines here as like the supportive best friend, but you kind of pity him because A is just not having it at all.
Oh, also in this episode, Pete, another note I said is Pete does email Tin to like look after A in this situation,
right?
Which I thought was kind of nice. Yeah,
that was actually really cute. I like that they put that in, because Pete even says to Tin, like, you're basically my only friend. And most portrayals of Tin are that he's a loner, that he's, he keeps to himself. But Pete always believed that Tin was a good person deep down. And so it's nice to see that confidence come from that letter. That, like, while Tin might have this really cold exterior and come off as kind of a haughty jerk, Pete kind of understood his plight and where he was coming from and believed that deep down he was actually a good person. And I think that that's a good way to set it up, with Tin not necessarily being the bad guy.
I wouldn't worry a bit too much about it, but basically after that we have Can walking, and then Tin walks up and saying Can is in his way.
Right.
That scene that's when they talk next, I think.
Yeah. And this is the scene where I think they first talk to each other at all, right?
Yeah. And Tin's like, do you know who I am?
Right.
And like, do you know who my dad is? And Can's like, no.
Yeah. He was like, was your dad recorded in history? Yeah. I think we both had the same note here.
Yeah. And like, Can's like, I failed social studies, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So even though the Meitanan family is like super well known, Can has no idea who he is. He doesn't care. He's not about that. Which sort of surprises Tin in this scene. And he calls Tin out for being like a total brat too. He does not hold back. And this is their first meeting. So I was pretty shocked by that, but I also liked it. I thought it was cute.
Yeah, Can has no filter, basically. And then we also then again run into another Tin Can scene before the episode's out. This is where they finally learn each other's name, as Can is a Washington shirt because he spilled like, what is it, like a juice or a drink?
Right.
All over
Oh
it?
yeah, he gets like red juice on his shirt. I thought that was actually really funny, and I love how every single time Can does something stupid, Tin is just like, he straightens his tie or he brushes off the dust off his shirt because he's so stuck up. And I really thought that he did a good job acting and adding in all these subtleties of character that made Tin extremely unique in that regard.
Mm-hmm. Or, like wiping his hands and saying dirty. And then Can's always like, I'm not dirty. What the hell? You stuck up.
Yeah. Like they really fleshed his character out, I think, by giving him a lot of these little like idiosyncrasies that are good in the same way that they did for Can, right? Where he's whiny and, he's kind of silly and goofy and cute in certain ways. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's that episode. The next thing I have is like more crying in the next episode.
More crying. Yeah.
More crying. It goes on, guys.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
Yes, it is. And it also kind of gets old very quickly, but it does get better. Just hold in there. Hold in there.
Well, and I think what's funny about that too is like, I was thinking about it because I was like, man, yeah, like these crying scenes are really long and played out. And for happy people like you and me, it's like we watch these scenes and we're just like, this is such a bore. Like, why are we being subjected to this? But I think what's interesting is like in my past, like when I've been in a situation similar to A's, like that was basically what my life felt like every day. It was like, okay, when is my next turn to cry and sit alone? Like, when is the next time I can go into a bathroom stall and just let the tears flow? So I think like when you're in a situation like A, you do just kind of want to cry all the time. And like they did actually portray that very realistically, but for the purposes of entertainment, it did feel a bit drawn out.
Yeah. It goes over the course of a few episodes, but eventually does sort of rebound.
Yeah.
With the help of his friends, which is nice.
Yeah, definitely. And they love him so much. They really love him.
So Can and No, Techno or No, probably we'll just use No. They have a really funny relationship. Can is like the younger brother that's being always teased by No, I feel like. And always getting free food from No.
Yeah.
So that's always hilarious. And they're like the comic relief of the soccer team.
Yes.
Yeah. And then from there, like also we do get introduced to the No Ken Claw or Claw relationship here. This has also sort of changed, I feel like, versus the actual book novel. So there is a novel for Ken Claw and Techno that's separate from LBC. So if you guys are fans of that, it is a little different.
Yeah.
At this point in LBC 2, basically what's happened is No has found out the truth, it seems, about the whole situation. Or at least he's feeling, he knows he got taken advantage of. And then a little later on, he finds out from Technic that Technic already knows everything as well. So there's that. And this, so we don't get very much of the two of them in this season, but the little bit we do get is just No kind of like slowly getting less angry.
Yeah, and I think like, and I realize why they didn't put a ton of it in to the series, or I guess I don't really know why, but I realize that that's just sort of how it is, that we aren't going to get a lot of Claw-No ship in this particular series. Yeah. But I really just wanted those scenes where like I remember in the books where Kenkla is just outside waiting by his car like every morning for Techno, right, to like drive him to school or whatever. And I just needed scenes, like I really just needed scenes of Claw outside by his like really nice car. I think that would have been enough for me as a fan. Like I needed a picture to go with that image in my head. But they portrayed him a little differently, much more affectionately actually in this series, where he's definitely sort of trying to win over Techno in a very almost like sweet and innocent way.
Mm-hmm. Especially when he finally does win Techno over, it is way more sweet and innocent.
Right. Yeah.
I feel like I would have liked to see Type's revenge, actually.
Yeah.
When Type finds out what Ken Claw did, like in the novel, but not so. So yeah, that was a interesting change, but yeah, it plays out through the series. So you get little bits and pieces. Okay, so back to Tin Can.
Yeah, they're basically the starship of this show.
Yeah,
they get most of the scenes, for better or for worse. So
yeah, it was meant to close out their relationship, to close the story around them. Because I think there was a lot of just fan demand for Tin Can.
Yeah.
So that's basically why they get most of the screen time.
Yep.
But yeah, I love how like also you start seeing how Can will tell Tin like, "Oh, I'm not hungry" or something, and then his stomach. This plays out with Tin and Toon. Like his stomach just betrays him every time. Yeah. Like he's like, "I'm not hungry, go away," and then his stomach just growls heavily. Yeah. It's like, oh yes. Also, just another side note is like the sound effects in this show are really like on point.
Oh yeah,
hilarious.
Yeah, the sound effects are always great, and I think that's actually one of the things about Thai drama in general that I just love is not only sort of like the slice of life approach to storytelling, but also just the sound effects and like all the weird faces they make. It just really adds a charm that other dramas that may take themselves a bit more seriously don't necessarily want to include. I love like when there's like a shocking moment and then the piano just, I don't know what you would call it, but it's like when the piano just makes this like terrible out of tuned noise.
Yeah.
All of that is super great. What was the scene where Can rubs his body on the car? Because like I wrote that in my notes and I was like, this has to go in our podcast. Like Can basically, or like Tin saying to Can that he's dirty and Can just being like, "Oh, okay, you want some of this?" And then he just rubs all over the car and then he rubs all over Tin's body, and he's just being a little smart aleck. I really liked that scene.
Yeah, that scene was great. It was I can't remember which episode. It might have been, it's in the beginning, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe into or one or two. Basically what happened is like, yeah, as Julie said, he kind of just rubs his body all over Tin's car. And then Tin as well after being called dirty. But like it's literally kind of like it's just this whole sequence of Tin and Can constantly running into each other. So it was one of those scenes where like Can had no clue it was Tin's car, sets something on Tin's car as he's trying to like do something with his hands, like open something or text her. I can't remember exactly, but then Tin approaches. And he's like, "What? Is this even your car?" And then, Tin uses the remote and like signals. And he's like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
So there's that. And then also we do get a kiss very early on from Tin Can is what I noted here.
We do. Actually, I think before that, though, there's the cafeteria scene, right?
What was the cafeteria scene?
So I think in the cafeteria scene, so I wrote this down before the kiss scene, so I'm pretty sure this happens before, but I don't remember exactly why, but Tin takes Can to the cafeteria to get him some food. And like you were saying, right? Like, oh yeah, his stomach betrays him. So then I think afterwards they go to the cafeteria and Can orders like 5 dishes. And then Tin's like, can you really eat all this? And he just has like a cup of coffee. Like he's in his very Tin way. But one thing I really liked about this scene, there's actually 2 things. The first thing was, I think it's where Tin says to Can that he's cuter than the other girls, right? So that's kind of the first time that Tin actually says anything sort of flirtatious or, that he's showing Can that he's kind of noticed him, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's okay. I remember what happened now. So it was basically some girl, as usual, is bothering Tin and trying to, go out or, get him as a boyfriend because he's rich, handsome, just like super rich family, actually.
Yeah.
And then Tin's about to say something bad to shoo her off, and then Can rushes in. And he's like, "Oh, you said you were going to have lunch with me. Let's go." And they race off.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's what happens.
And that's when Can's stomach betrays him because he's like, "I'm not hungry," Like,
yeah.
So they end up there, and then I think they went to the cafeteria because Tin is saying thank you in his own way for the washing of the shirt.
Yeah.
If I remember. Or either that or being saved from the girl.
Right, right.
I can't remember, but that's why he gets like, what is it, 4 or 5 plates of food?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then later after that is the kiss scene. But what was notable about the kiss scene at the end is like it's from Can saying that Tin is someone who lacks warmth and love when he was a kid, right? And that's just like it just hits this part of Tin that's like it's very true,
very visceral, yeah.
And then he just randomly kisses Can, and Can is completely shocked.
Yeah.
And then obviously cue music right there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think something else really notable about this scene that it's funny because I didn't notice it the first time I watched the series, but when I did the rewatch, I was like, oh my God, this is kind of significant. So he basically says to Tin, like, hey, stop just talking to me like I'm a nobody. Stop talking to me like I'm just invisible, like air. And this is significant because later on in the series, Tin actually says that, you're the air that I breathe. So it's really significant, and it comes at an interesting time. I wish that they had more of those kind of interesting dualities, but I really liked this scene for that reason. Not only because like Tin kisses Can in public, in the open, right? So clearly like he doesn't have a problem with that, which like kind of shocked me. But also, of course it was to quote unquote shut him up. But I think that, like you were saying, Can kind of struck a chord and made several really good points. So even though he's kind of, not the smartest or brightest cran in the box, he is good at understanding people's feelings and maybe a bit more empathic than he kind of comes off. And I think that definitely is true with the whole A thing, which comes later, but Can shows how empathic he can be when, A is suffering a lot and he kind of suffers as a result of it and is like, I don't want to become like that, right?
Poor Can spends the next few episodes figuring out if he likes, 1, guys, and 2, if he likes Tin.
Yeah.
And we get to see him zone out a lot, which is hilarious. But his poor best friend Job. Keeps having to get him out of his zoned out phases. And like, I have a note here. The teacher asks Can to wake Job to wake Can up because he's making random kissing noises as he sleeps in class. And then if we go back to, Tin Can, this is all developing. So after that kiss scene, right, like, we see Can runs into Tin again. So I want your opinion on this, Julie. Like, what did you think about, when Can and his sister go to the mall, and then Can gets ratted out by his sister that they're not that Lei is the sister, not the girlfriend.
Yeah, okay, so for one, I am just a huge fan of Lei's actress in general. Like, she is just great. I love her reaction to Tin. Like, whenever Tin, I think when she first meets Tin and she just lights up and she is just blushing and all sweet, and she's like, she's just so smitten by his good looks. So it really does, you really get excited, I think, through her, because obviously Can is kind of not having it, right? Like, he doesn't see anything great about Tin, and so she's like the inner fangirl of me, kind of having her fun and her reaction. Very, very cute.
The boys love Fan, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting that they did actually kind of play down her role as like a Fujoshi in this particular adaptation, because in the books, of course, and in the previous one, she's very much like the Fujoshi behind the scenes, like fantasizing and writing fiction and all of this, but you really don't see that come out here in this series. I think she's still kind of into like shipping Tin with other good looking men, but she's not as fanatical, which I think was a good choice, because I think they were trying to focus more on the romance and the love and not so much on the Fujoshi stuff, which can be kind of overplayed in BL. But yeah, I love her reactions. I love when she scoffs at Tin when he's like, oh, sister, not girlfriend, right? And she's like, oh, please, me be his girlfriend? Yeah, right. Like,
yeah, she's like, a guy with his face, who would be his girlfriend?
Right. She's so mean.
And I thought it was hilarious too in this scene. Like, it's right between two scenes, actually, two episodes, really, right? Can goes, I'm here with my girlfriend. And then Lei appears, and then she goes, oh, I'm his sister. And then you hear Tin go, sister, not girlfriend?
Right.
And so Tin is like, yes, I have a chance still, right?
Right. You can see him kind of shocked. Like, you can tell that he's a little bit put off when he mentions girlfriend, but also I think he has a hard time believing it.
Yeah. I think there's both, right? Like, oh, shoot, do I not have a chance anymore? And then one, like, really? Like, you have a girlfriend?
Yeah.
Especially because, Tin probably actually had a background check done.
Yeah, I know, right?
So he's probably like, what's going on here,
yeah.
Right? So, but yeah, I thought Lei ratting out Can was hilarious. I did make a note also here. So when they were having a meal with Lemon, Tin, and Can,
mm-hmm.
Lemon or Lei, she in this case, Lei is the one who kind of tells Tin about the names, right?
Yeah.
Can's full name is Cantaloupe.
Right.
I thought it was a little better in season 1 when the mom did it,
yeah.
But even here, it was still good, right? Like, so I think the reason they're making Lei a bit more serious, because like, later on she's kind of the one that like reminds Can of important dates of his and Tin's relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So while she is a Fujoshi, she's also the one keeping track
yeah.
of her brother's boyfriend's like important moments.
Yeah.
So.
She says his butt like a number of times. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's probably one of the important ones.
Yeah. Well, and I think one thing that was interesting to me about that conversation she had too is she tries to tell Tin, and again, I kind of didn't appreciate these until watching it a second time, but she basically tries to tell Tin like, hey, my brother's really kind of stupid and immature, and he believes what people tell him he takes it at face value and he believes them point blank, and he's naive in that kind of sense, right? So she's asking Tin like, hey, can you teach my brother to be a better mannered person? Can you teach my brother to be a smarter person, right? So she's putting all this stock in Tin. But what I think is really interesting is we actually sort of see the reverse happening over the course of the series, where there's a number of moments where Can kind of has to put Tin in his place. And we see this play out, you know, as the show goes on, but there's moments where he teaches him how to apologize like a man, and how to not, you know, kind of weasel his way out of things with money. And so Can ends up being Tin's teacher. I would say even more than Tin ends up becoming Can's teacher. Yeah.
I feel like she was asking him Tin more to protect Can.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
More so than teach him. 'Cause yeah, I agree. Can does teach Tin how to, you know, behave in normal society versus, you know, upper class society.
Right.
So like how to apologize, not just throw money at the problem.
Right. Right.
Also, yeah, like, so that's what happens. But I do feel like she was saying, hey, can you like protect my brother versus more than teach him how not to be so naive.
Yeah, I like that interpretation. I think that's good.
Yeah, because I feel like Can is more, he's going to be naive no matter what you do.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
So it was like protection, and then, you know, in a way, I bet this probably happened later on, like behind the scenes, right? Like Lei would probably do that, you know, that threatening sister talk, or, you know, that usually the best friend does or the older brother does.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then like, oh, there's so much. Okay, so also before we get to the later episodes, we do meet Tum again here.
Oh yeah.
Who is trying to write a new song, I guess, a love song. He's still kind of in love with his stepbrother, so not related by blood. Who in the first season, I think there might have been some type of relationship, but in this case we meet Tum's friend Keen, who obviously has a crush or feelings. Like, I thought the actor for Keen did a really good job of making it super obvious he liked Tum. Oh my gosh.
He was a shy boy too. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, as I say here, he is so obviously in love. He's a goner.
Yeah. So. He's like a, you know, a little puppy, like following Tum around. You can tell he's very much, you know, into Tum and respects him and his music, and I think actually it is a good pairing because they are sort of quieter, shyer, serious people. But what I like about Keen is just how considerate he is, and they really did show that. Even despite not having a ton of scenes, they really did show that Keen really cares about Tum, and I like how they did that.
And then we also get to meet Gon. Is it Gon Hin or
Gon Hin? Yeah.
Yeah. So very, very attractive guy for Hin. And then so we get to see the backstory between Hin and Toon. And I guess Julie's read the books, so it's I mean, even in the series, you can tell it was super complicated of a relationship. I mean, there's definitely love between the two, but little complications from, like, you know, the traditional family value expectation of Toon being the eldest child and whatnot, kind of get in the way there.
Yeah, and I think, so are we talking about the scene where he sort of pulls Hin out of class? Are we talking about that scene?
That part.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So this scene was really good, I think, for one, because Toon does such a good job, or his actor does such a good job of showing how he has this way with the ladies. Like, these girls are just falling all over him. He is the model student. He is perfect. He knows how to be flirtatious and flattering without being too
over the top.
Too
much.
Yeah, like too much, right?
Yeah.
He's just super classy, all around genial guy, right? And so then you get this very, very different side of him where, you know, they sort of hint at when he sort of grabs Heaton and takes him out of the classroom, they sort of hint at his abusive personality.
Yeah.
But yeah, just I really liked his acting. I liked how they showed kind of the two sides of him. And I really like Heaton's acting in particular because you see him as just this stoical, like solid guy who's just pretty sensitive, but like can take it, right? Like can take the drama. So
yeah,
these scenes definitely stick out to me because they're my favorite ship of all of Mame's work that I've read.
The hilarious scene where Can wakes up again. At this point, Tin and Can their relationship's kind of evolving. I think this is also the point where Tin has given him. I think Tin's already given him the new phone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, so this is where.
Where he starts pursuing him, right?
Yeah, but like Can wakes up, panics, steps out his door, looks around for a taxi, but then the bun he has in his mouth drops out of his mouth when he sees Tin there with his Mercedes. He's like, and he's always saying, why are you here? Or what are you doing here? And Tin's always like, when are you gonna stop saying that? So. Yeah, and this is where he's like, I'm going to start hitting on you, by the way.
Yeah,
and then kisses Can.
So smooth. Like, I really thought they did a good job here, the actors, just showing Tin and being like, yeah, I've never pursued anyone like you, but I'm just going to give it my best shot. And he's so smooth and so romantic, and it's just such an odd juxtaposition between him and his smooth ways and Can, who is just like totally a stranger to all of this and doesn't really get it, but at the same time still understands that he's being pursued by Tin for real at this point.
So Tin, he's rich, right? So he's never pursued a guy. So he kind of doesn't know how to hit on Can properly, but to get Can's number, okay, so basically he gives Can a ride to school. Can forgets his phone in Tin's car. The phone you see is very, very, very intact. And then like a few minutes later, it cuts to Can realizing he's like forgot his phone completely. Job comes in to save the day, calls his phone, but it doesn't pick up, and then goes like, hey, where have you been today? And then he realizes he was in Tin's car. So he rushes over to the international school. Or the inter kids, as they like to call them. Mm-hmm. So he rushes over there, and he's so cute, like just describing Tin as like this tall, arrogant, handsome man. Yeah. And no one gets him until he like comes across the fangirls.
Oh yeah, the girls.
In the school. Oh, it's great. So that happens, and then meanwhile, while all that's happening, Tin has purposely destroyed Can's phone and goes to buy Can a new phone and puts his number in that new phone. So that's his way of getting Can's number, is getting Can a new number and a new phone so he can put it in his own phone instead of just asking for his line ID or his phone number.
Right. He says that it got like broken by a 10-wheeler, right?
Yeah, I think he probably just ran over it himself.
Yeah.
So yeah, and this is also where Tin learns how to say I'm sorry. And it's kind of funny. It's like, why are you apologizing that his phone got destroyed if it was an accident, right? But yeah, no. So he does learn to say I'm sorry. And like there is some, I think he's more sorry for the fact that he purposely crushed the phone just to do this, versus So we know it wasn't a true accident, especially from the sound effects when they're talking to each other. It's like, oh, it's such a coincidence that my phone got destroyed by accident, and Tin's like, audible gulp, and it's like, yeah, coincidence. So yeah, I thought
he never admits to him, does he?
No, he never tells him the truth. Which I guess is for the better in this situation. But yeah, I think it's one of those things that Tin probably won't ever do again. He'll probably just, he can be a bit more direct and like say what he wants versus
Yeah.
going around it. But yeah, so like there's that, and then this all leads into like, Tin hitting on Can for a good while.
Yeah, and he says actually at some point, like, he says he's going to get serious, right? And I don't remember exactly what scene. I know it was around this time, but he says, like, I'm going to get serious in pursuing you, right? And I think what's interesting is that he gets so serious about pursuing Ken, and he's doing it by the book, right? Like, he's bringing him snacks, and he's bringing him he brought him this new phone, and he's doing all of these gestures and trying to sort of give Can signs that he's interested in him. But I wrote down in my notes that it's actually the best thing he can give to Can is actually showing his vulnerability. And that's what Can needed to see before Can started opening his heart up to Tin.
Yeah, Tin's broken down at the end of 5
Mm-hmm.
and spilling his guts out on the phone.
Yeah, so it's a while before we see that, but I think that's what ultimately sort of, that's where
Yeah.
Can starts to understand that he has concern for Tin.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, it's where he first understands Tin's plight. I feel
Yeah.
like, and so Tin opens up to Can, and Can starts showing how loyal he can be to friends
Mm-hmm.
and family. Like, hey, if my older brother did that, blah blah blah. Like, he's furious as an older brother himself.
Mm-hmm. So I think what happens, and I think this is around the time where, again, like where Tin ends up showing his vulnerability to Can, because he and his brother have several fights, but the one that kind of makes Tin freak out and go to Can is after he catches Tun telling Pupa the story of the two brothers, right? And like
Oh yeah, it was in 5.
okay.
So it was before the date.
Right,
Yeah.
it had to have been, because this is where Tin goes to Can and says, "Can I see you now?" Yeah.
Yeah, and then says, I'm going to seriously pursue you. And then in 6 is where Can meets Pooh and goes, hey, isn't this bastard's son?
Right.
And then Pooh, defends his dad, like a loyal, 5-year-old?
Yeah.
Or kid? I'll say kid, because I don't know his age.
Yeah.
But he's a young kid. So that the first date.
When they go to see a movie.
Yeah.
Right?
And well, they watched it at Tin's place, and Tin's like, it's movie and dinner. I don't care how stupid you are. This is a date.
Yeah, this is a date.
And you know it. And then at the end of 6 is when Tin asks Can to be his boyfriend. This his first time getting hit on, I guess. He's not sure how he feels for Tin. And like you said, like way earlier, so he rejects Tin at first because he sees that A is feeling super sad, so he doesn't want to feel sad himself.
Right.
So like he's feeling sorry for A, but then he also is like, well, I don't want to feel that way. I don't want Tin to feel that way if something ever happens. So to avoid it, without realizing that they'd end up sad anyway, to avoid it, he just says, can we just be friends? Tin's face is so heartbroken. So I think Mean did a really good job here, where like you could tell Tin's just like completely heartbroken.
Oh yeah, he's devastated.
Yeah, and like the single tear,
Yeah.
right? That one single tear again.
Yeah.
Just like, yeah.
Well, and it's such a contrast too between the scene at the car outside when he goes to Can, and the relief on his face when he can just collapse into Can's arms and like tell him about his terrible brother and tell him about his terrible childhood, and feeling like he was getting closer to Can. And then like an episode later, he basically gets rejected by Can, and it's just so hard to
Yeah.
see that relief that he felt of finally being able to get close with somebody and share like some of his darkest secrets, to basically being told like, I just don't know. Like, I don't know about this.
Yeah. being friend zoned as like a best friend, basically, I feel like is what just happened.
Yeah.
And then of course, this all leads into Can like not eating. So that shocks his mom and his sister when he's like, I'm not hungry. And so, the mom and Lei are like the comic relief after that rejection. And they're like, was it? The mom's like, hey, don't stop trying to sneakily eat first. You got to wait for your older brother.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm not. And of course she is. And then Can gets home and she's like, I didn't eat before you, so don't scold me. and Can's like, I'm not hungry, and just walks upstairs. So that was kind of sad. Also, they keep mentioning the dad, who we never ever see, by the way. He's like never home.
Yeah.
So there is that, which is kind of interesting, but at least we know there is a dad in the situation. So I think the more important note is like, this gets to the point where A has to sit down with Can again and be like, did you not get my original message? Right? He's like, hey, no, I didn't mean when you asked me what love is and I said it's Pete, I didn't mean, it's all sad. Right?
Yeah.
So he has to explain to Can exactly what he means, and then he tells Can, hey, go talk to Tin. And that kind of leads into some hilarity from there, since Can gets jealous of another girl who's trying to hit on Tin again. But not as bad as the first time.
Yeah, I think Can is just so positive that he's afraid of pain and hurt, and they did really actually, I think, show that well in the series, that every time Can's kind of alone and just like talking to himself, he kind of brings up like, man, I don't want to be like miserable like these other guys. Like I'm a happy-go-lucky kid. Like I don't want to suffer like them. I don't want to grow up. Like he's kind of resisting that. He doesn't want to feel pain and hurt.
He'd rather avoid it, but he ends up feeling that pain and hurt anyway, I feel like. So there was really no use avoiding it because he ended up feeling that way anyways.
Yeah. So he's kind of like shocked when I think Tin asked him to be his boyfriend, and he just kind of whines. I think I remember that scene too. Like this was the rejection scene, but he kind of just whines, right? He's kind of like, like, I don't.
He still doesn't know his feelings.
He's just like, why can't we just stay friends? And that's when Tin goes like, but you're the air I breathe. Like I'm drowning without you, and every time I see you, I'm pulled up for more oxygen. And like Tin is clearly on the other side where he understands his feelings for Can, but Can is just still really clueless. Like it has not registered to him that Tin is an important person to him in his life yet.